Okay, it looks like we're going again now. Just unfortunately, where there's a little bit of delay, so I apologize for folks that were watching that may be seeing this. I may be looking a little slow since I'm looking about 30 seconds behind here. Okay, well, it looks like you guys are seeing what I'm seeing now. So apologies for several false starts here. This is all new tech to me, but I'm excited to kind of play around with it. So as I was saying before, and I have no idea whether or not it caught it or not, but I'll probably have to re-edit this video down later. Uh, Starting off with the Hercules star cluster, something that's hopefully setting us up for success here on what we can look at. And one of the really nice things about the software improvements over the last few years is that you can, instead of, especially for live astronomy, instead of trying to take a pure video or having to look at individual still frames that are just completely full of noise. You can actually do a lot of live stacking now, which is, I think, really opens this up for a lot more fun. It allows you to kind of have your cake and eat it too, in a way, because, right now I'm taking pictures of this as each new image completes. It adds it to this stack, and the noise in here is getting averaged out, making for a better and better image as we go. At the same point in time, I can kind of hit this record button here, and it'll start saving each one of those individual frames. So even though this is doing what it can on the fly to clean up the image, I can actually go back in later to the raw images, stack them in a little bit more traditional software, and come up with something that's even better. It allows me to kind of enjoy what I'm looking at in the night, and then when I have 3 or 4 hours to put it all together later, I certainly can. So as I was saying before, this is 102 millimeter telescope, so I just kind of zoom back out to the full frame here, so you can kind of see what we're dealing with. It's a refractor, which is nice for a few reasons, but more than anything else, it helps me keep my stars nice and round as we go through here. I didn't really want to have to break out my SCT where I might be a little bit more worried about collimation. And then, so we can kind of play around here with our brightness and darkness settings and our midtones to try to tease out as much kind of detail as we can here. Now I'm shooting from Plano, or Plano, Texas, for anyone who may be from out of state looking at this. So anyone who is from around here knows we essentially are under a full gray sky. We're, pretty much a white zone on light pollution. So what I'm working with is just a little moon and sky glow filter from Bader, which really doesn't do a whole heck of a lot on the imaging side, other than just toning down that light pollution a bit. And then the rest of it's really the software, just adding up to get the noise better and better. So that is Hercules. We've been running this for, it looks, a few minutes here. I think that's looking pretty good. And I'm probably going to get ready to move on to the next target here soon. For anyone that joins in, feel free to post in chat if there's a particular object you want me to try. Let you know off the bat, I've been having a little bit of slewing problems for anything that's like truly in the south for some reason. That I may be a little out of balance on my mount here. But anything, especially, a little bit, right along kind of your true, up down, kind of, or not up down, east west is probably pretty good. So I'm going to take a look here at another object from my database and see what might be good to look at. Oh, here's a old favorite. I'm going to go ahead and stop the stacking here. And we're going to flew to our next target, which is going to be the Dumbbell Nebula. So let's go ahead and try a 10-second exposure on that, which should be more than enough. Put this on our auto adjust. Oh, need to reset my stack. Yep, there he is. All right, let's go ahead and I think for this one, because we have it's such a bright object, I'm gonna go ahead and move this down. Let's see. Just want to take a look at what a 15-second exposure is going to look like here. May want to bump it back up. Yeah, let's bump it back up. Let's go ahead and see how much we can get out of this. So, all right, we're going to start with 15-second exposures and see how good this looks here for us. All right. While that's starting to clean up there, I'm just going to play with a couple of these settings here. All right. Let's go ahead and zoom in here just a bit. And I think we got enough to start playing with our sliders. Let's go ahead and get rid of some of that background. There we go. Here we go. Dim this down a little bit more. And there's our Dumbbell Nebula starting to come in. And even at, 15 seconds, right? One of the things that I love is that I can still actually see some of the wisps of the dimmer or fainter parts of the nebula right here. So it's not just kind of that core, apple core here. It's one of the great things about the Dumbbell Nebula is it's so bright that's, pretty easy to find, either visually or with, any level of camera. Then the rest is just kind of how deep do you want to go? How long do you want to image it for, to bring out more and more detail as we go. And in my case, also one of the things I've done, I am cheating a little bit if I've turned up, the saturation amount. If I bring this down here, the colors get a little bit more muted. But I'm a big fan of calling it out a little bit so you can really see some of the color differences here. Let this run for a couple minutes. See see how clean we can get it looking. I love planetary nebula. Just in general, they each have a very different shape, and that idea of, like, when you look at something like a really large nebula out there, it's really easy to just think of that as dust, right, and things like that. But when you've got a planetary nebula, we pretty much figured out that there's a star that pretty much half blew up, right? The outer layers of it just got puffed out. And so you end up with these really cool and interesting shapes that are constantly being lit up by the star that's still in the center there, or more than one star. The other thing for me that I think is just awesome to think about, maybe a little sad for some people to think about, but that's essentially what most uh, astrophysicists think is what's going to happen to our sun. It's not big enough to go nova, um, but after it goes red giant, and it starts running out of fuel, and it can't sustain the size anymore, it's actually going to puff those layers out and become a planetary nebula. So this may be what our solar system looks like to, either hopefully our descendants in some other star system, or aliens one day, which, you know, sounds silly to talk like that, but hey, we're looking at the stars as well. So yeah, lots of detail in there. Let's see, moving some of these around. Just trying to see how much more we can kind of get out of this. Ah, there we go. There we go. So you can really see kind of the top and bottom of that there now. So 3:30, I think that's about 5 minutes worth of exposure here. So, not too bad, honestly. I took a picture of the dumbbell that took me about 3.5 hours of integration. And other than, obviously some of the noise in here to be cleaned up, I can't tell you that, really, I wasn't, I'm seeing everything that's in there. Obviously it was a little sharper. There's a little bit more detail on it, but it's not like I got, way out here into the rest of it way more than what I'm seeing now. So it's really crazy what you can get with just a few minutes of exposure if you're really getting an idea of how to work your camera, which has been a big problem for me for a while. So I'm going to let this sit probably another 2 or 3 minutes here. I'm going to run inside and get something to drink. And while I do that, I'm also going to look and try to figure out our next target. Once again, if you're looking at this on YouTube, um, I believe there's a little chat app kind of thing over on the side there that you're more than welcome to type into and let me know if there's something that you're interested in seeing, um, or feedback if I'm staying on something too long or not long enough, whatever you'd like. I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, so I'm back here. Let's see, make sure my phone connect back up to the scope. Be a little bit of a disaster if it couldn't. All right. All right. Well, I think this is pretty good here. I'm gonna slide it around for kind of a final look. Yeah, even at the end here, maybe a little hard to tell on YouTube. I'll try to brighten it up just a little bit. But, right here, we're even getting some of the red at the very tip of the dimmer part of the nebula here. So, really pretty good for, really just 10 minutes or so worth of exposure time. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that one, and we're going to move on to our next target. One thing I can do here is replay real quickly what my test was from earlier this evening, which was M101. So go ahead and put this into replay mode here. It's another nice thing with this particular piece of software. Go ahead and have it update here, and oh, sorry, that was looking at Andromeda from a previous session. Let's do M101 instead. So M101, which is one of the pinwheels, is pretty hard to see at this particular time of year. It was real low on the horizon. You see, I got a plain streak through it. That's how low it was for me. But one of the things I was surprised about, this was without the light pollution filter on, and I'm just kind of stepping it through, stacking the exposures here, is I was surprised that I was still able to actually make it out. I was able to really see some stuff with it. This is definitely something that I would think that I would want to clean up pretty heavily after the fact. But the fact that I was able to get anything at all with this only about probably maybe 15 degrees on the horizon, and only getting lower as I let it run for about half an hour or so, was pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and just step through some of these here so that you can see kind of what I was able to see as I was doing my test here earlier this evening. Center that up in the frame a little bit. Once I get it through about 20 of these, I'll go ahead and readjust some of the settings, see if we can make it look any better. Okay, so there we go. We've got about 10 minutes worth of exposure time on that, and not that one. Let's see more. There we go. A little bit dimmer now, but if we start bringing up the brightness a little bit, you can really see, in some cases you may have to use your imagination a little bit, but you can really start seeing the structure of those spiral arms coming out. Let me see if I can bring it in a little bit better here. think if you are watching on YouTube, it always ends up a little dimmer on that final image than what it looks like for me. So I'll try to brighten it up a little bit more for that. And let's just step through some more here. Now, one thing to note, so you see this line of the airplane that had kind of crossed through the view in the first couple of images. That's one of the things that with an actual kind of offline uh, astro stacking software, that'll actually average out and literally just disappear from the final image. At the same point in time, what we've got here is actually like a dust bunny or or a fingerprint in my system, and that's something that can be cleared up after the fact as well, or by taking what's called dark or flat frames, which is something that I'll probably be doing if I get everything working later this evening for some sitting on a particular target for a long time. So as I'm just kind of tapping through these, you know, we're at just about 40 images. There we go, 40 images, and really can see the structure now. It's still got a lot of noise in it, a lot of light pollution that we're shooting through here, but for really not a lot of time, um, and pretty short exposures. There's still a lot that can be seen even from a pretty polluted backyard here. Kind of step through a few more of these before I kind of do a final adjustment, and then I think that'll be it for us for this evening. I was kind of looking at tonight as a test of trying to schedule one of these up in advance, and um, really seeing what it would look like live. I think what I've figured out is I'm not a big fan of the built-in streaming capability in this particular one. Think I'll try to get a separate encoder here uh, going forward. All right. All right. So this is going to make this a little dimmer, but hopefully also feeling a little bit less noisy. So I think for YouTube, I probably ought to bump it up a little bit. So this is kind of extra high contrast. So, but really does kind of show some of those arms there. Let's bring it down a bit. And this is one of the things right now that you can just play with all night, is just trying to get just the right set of settings to see what you want to see. But I think that's probably pretty good for now of really taking a look at the final structure here. Oh, of course, I say that and immediately blow it out the wrong way. Back down just a little more. There we go. There we go. I think that's pretty good. So there we go for M101. Our final object for tonight. So we did 3 or so, which is probably not the best thing for an hour worth of work here, but it's a start. And so if folks like this, let me know either on kind of that original Facebook post I made, or feel free to leave a comment on this, that kind of thing. And and I'm looking to maybe do some more of this in the future. Um, not necessarily for public outreach, but that would be I'd be happy to have anyone from the public who wants to look at this, but also just for the local astronomical society, for folks that uh, may just be wanting to see what you can see with the camera as opposed to the eyepiece, without necessarily having to spend a lot of time on it. But so that's it. Thanks for watching. I think if I remember correctly, when I shut this thing down before, as soon as I clicked the button, it actually cut off the last 30 seconds of audio. So I'm going to let it run for just one more minute here, and then I'll shut it down. So thanks. Have a good one.